So BLG along with T1 have made it to the grand finals of the World Championship, so I'm going to look at the Game 2 draft of the semifinal they had against Weibo the other day to take a look at what they've been doing well in the draft to set themselves up for victory, because obviously they've been performing really well, and I think that's been starting in the draft. So Weibo go ahead and first pick Callista. This is really questionable. They had a pretty high prio on this champion throughout the series. Obviously it's a really comfortable champion for light, and he's proven to be very good on this pick, but I think it's pretty much setting yourself up for failure. She's a really hard early to mid-game skirmish champion that falls off toward the later half of the game and also struggles to kill tanks tremendously. So I think that Callista is kind of forcing your team comp in a bad direction, and I think BLG counter with a really nice first phase. Jax and Skarner were actually given it to BLG all 3 games of this series, and Bin and June just absolutely smurfed on these picks. 2 of the best picks available, probably the best jungle pick in the game available, and Jax has been a very meta, very strong top laner with really high prio throughout the entire World Championship. So I don't really know what Weibo's doing here in the early phases of the draft. BLG obviously capitalized on that mistake though on B1 and pick up probably the 2 strongest picks available. I also think that this is something that BLG has been consistently doing throughout the World Championship this year to great success, is having good matchups for their solo laners. This has been a big point for them in draft. If they're able to get advantageous matchups for Bin and Knight, they'll pretty much take over the game no matter what. And they've obviously insane players, they're performing very, very well. But the emphasis and the priority that BLG has on getting these players good matchups is just very, very good. And then they just stick Elk on, kind of a role player, more team dependent role like the Ziggs, kind of just wave clearing and being more of a utility player and really letting those solo carries shine in the carry roles. Weibo go in 2-3 Maokai and Renata. Renata's obviously the go-to pairing with Callista. It's also going to get decent value this game against Jax and Skarner, who have to run directly into the Renata. Maokai as well is just a very strong champion, always a good standby in the jungle. Is this the game Weibo flexed it to top lane? I don't remember specifically. I think we'll find out here. But the Maokai, regardless of if it's jungle or top, is still a very strong pick. But I think that, again, they were kind of countering themes here. Maokai is kind of a scaling frontliner who wants to play toward late game objective fights, whereas Callista Renata is a really lane dominant duo that wants to scrap in the early mid game. Although Renata is going to have value, I just struggle to see the priority on the Callista here and how she's going to be able to play the game into 1 Jax, into 2 Skarner, and into 3 Ziggs. She's going to have a really tough time here. And then BLG go in R4 the Rel here. I think this is okay. It's not obviously being picked for the lane pairing with Ziggs. Ziggs is pretty much an ADC that you pick just to have a roaming support. You can just stick the Ziggs down there and he can perma wave clear without any threat really. And so the Rel is obviously going to be roaming around the map a lot this game. I think she pairs pretty well with the Skarner and the Jax, being pretty short ranged and dive heavy here on that team fight side. And Weibo round out with the Elise and the Lucian, which is really sus. I will give them props though. They are hard committed to this early mid-game comp here. They're pretty much saying if we don't get ridiculously ahead in the early game, we're going to lose this game. And even if we do, we're probably still going to lose this game. If Weibo make 1 mistake pre-15, the game's over. If they don't get 3 dragons by 17 minutes, the game's probably over. And then with a Syndra pick round out on R5 for BLG, it's just really easy for them to play. They outrange, they outscale, they have better teamfight dynamics, and literally the second the game hits 20 minutes, the game is pretty much won for them. So I think the consistent factor in this series, at least for BLG, was getting Jax and Skarner all 3 games, and then just having consistently better team fights, letting their carries shine through the solo lanes and getting advantageous matchups for Bin and Knight specifically. So it's obviously a winning formula for this team. Will T1 be able to counter this at all? I think it's going to be, Jax is going to be a pretty important pick in the finals because Zeus showed that he can pick Renekton, or Gragas rather, into the Jax and the Renekton, 2 of Bin's most heavily prioritized champions. So I think that Zeus definitely has the capability of neutralizing Bin if he gets one of those power picks, but I think that the really key matchup in finals is going to be Faker versus Knight. Who can get the priority, who can get the advantage in that mid lane through the draft phase. Other than that, it's going to be a really exciting series, but BLG have a clear plan, have a clear way to win draft ahead of them, get those solo laners in good matchups, and they'll be able to shine in the game. Thanks for watching. See you next time.